This is the Endo meeting on Wednesday, July 9 of 2025. The topic is Ryan. You have
Y-
thoughts about make iterator ref and make ref iterator.
Yes, that's right. The main thought is would like to be able to use them in a place that might not be the endo daemon.
Yeah, a place where they might belong in perpetuity. Not, yeah, the demon is, again, not where these are intended to live. The plan of record, as stated, is that we will take a package from Agoric SDK called Agoric Notifiers, move that into Endo, call it something appropriate for its scope in Endo, like Endo pub sub or some such, and um, get rid of the implementation that we regret and keep the implementation we like. The strategy for that is that in Agoric notifiers, the API looks like you choose a client based off of what pub sub semantics you want. I think that there are there are three sensible pub sub semantics. Um, well, pardon, there are three extant pub sub semantics, two of which I think are reasonable, one of which is popular and not correct. The the crux of the design is that what you're subscribing to, um, okay. So for streams, the expectation is that the producer and the consumer, um, that if you have with a stream, the expectation is that there will be a single consumer. In the case that there is a single consumer, that they will see every value that was transited from the beginning of the stream to the end. That's one thing. That's appropriate for some things, and we would want a client for that. That's basically what make iterator ref and make ref iterator are doing. The expectation is that when you begin a stream, you want to see everything. The other two sensible semantics are, um, depending on whether you want to see differential data or whether you want to see snapshots. Um, so like we have a latest, like a subscribe latest client that's like make ref iterator, where there's an exo that represents a thing that can be iterated upon, and you want to get a JavaScript iterator from that, a JavaScript async iterator from that, and its internal mechanism is uh, it's I don't remember the details. The method the protocol on the wire is unimportant as long as you have a light client and a light server that bridge the gap so that you can talk JavaScript iterator protocol on both the client and server, and it just gets translated over OCAP or CapTP or whatever. The the design in general is that there will be a subscribable object, a topic object of some kind, and you choose either at the time, and this is where the debate comes in. The debate comes in is like, who gets to choose what kind of topic it is? Does the subscriber choose the topic, or does the publisher choose the topic type? I think it's appropriate for the topic type to be known by the known at the time of the publisher, because they're in a position to know what kind of data it is. I think that agoric notifiers um, gives the client a lot of freedom to decide what kind of data it is. I think that the subscriber decides what kind of topic it is. In any case, um, it does
I'm
not.
not familiar with agoric notifiers saying anything about topic.
You have subscribe each and subscribe latest in agoric notifiers, which is the subscriber deciding whether you want to see every
I
value
see.
that's published or
I
just the most recent
okay.
time that you pull.
So would you? I that's what you mean by kind of topic. Yes. Okay. Good.
Yes, right. And like make iterator ref and make ref iterator are different. No, there's not really PubSub, but they can be backed by PubSub. I don't know. It's tough. The um in any case, none of this is paged in my active active memory at the moment.
Nor
Uh,
mine, nor mine.
the
The use case for which I'm interested is basically on one side, you have a generator that is like 4 loop yields, and on the
mm,
other side, you have an iterator that is 408.
yeah,
So it's very like we made one over there and we get it over here.
yeah. And your expectation is that when you yeah, that the generator is created on behalf of the consumer whenever you create a subscriber, right? That's the streaming case. That's not the pub sub case.
Right, right.
There's uh we might just need to move iterator ref and ref iterator into a new home because that isn't the pub sub case, though it could be used for it. The and it does have the disadvantage that it's stretching iterator protocol over the wire for the most part. It's the next return throw. I don't know. I think that we maybe we just create a package that so there's an existing package in Endo called Endo Stream, which creates local abstractions for streaming. Um, we need a partner package for that for the EXO layer.
Yeah, the current implementation that I have put together is something like make pipe from EndoStream and write to the writer and send the reader bar ref using ref reader and then read from it.
Hmm.
Or using reader ref. Yeah, anyway.
The pipe is probably superfluous in a lot of cases, but that's another issue. The yeah, so let's make a new package. I don't know what to call it, but probably something like ExoStream, Endo ExoStream. I don't know. The the protocol should be something like you would say make exo and it would produce an object with a conventionally named method like iterate, not using the symbol. We're trying to avoid using the JavaScript symbols over the wire. So if you had an exo that implemented an iterate method, which returned yet another exo that implemented the next return throw protocol that we all know and hold dear, um, the that's probably what we need to do.
Okay. Uh, it's something I would be interested in making a PR for. Um, what if you name the package Endo Asyncurator?
Naming, gosh, naming is hard. Okay, so asyncurator is one, hilarious. Kudos. That is, it fulfilled, it's not a requirement, but it certainly is nice to have. Um, the the a good name satisfies 3 requirements with different weights, and it can't satisfy all of them. It usually can't satisfy all of them the perfectly. So you have to like balance them. Oh my goodness. I have an insinkerator, by the way. Thank you, Eric, for saying insinkerator. Doesn't everybody have an insinkerator? That's what the brand of everyone's garbage disposal.
I do have that.
Yeah, it's mine is.
Oh, right. Um, yeah, and this of course invites, like Richard is suggesting in chat, asynchronator, asynchrinator. Yeah, which of course
Asyncinator.
asynchrinator obviously gives you is just one step away from version 2 or actually version 9 of asynchronator would be the asynchronatorix, if you will.
Well, there's no need to bring gender into it.
I didn't. It's a version number. We have to go. We would be obliged to do a syncinator-y and a syncinator-y and a syncinator, a syncinator-ive. But it's a long game, but we could get there. The good okay, so a good name covers it describes the referent. One. Two, it describes only the referent and nothing else. And three is hilarious for its short. Right? The so where a syncinator and a syncerator both fall short, I think, is specificity.
Fair enough. You know, to me, we've combined async iterator, async generator. That's exactly what it does.
Yeah. The Endo stream package, that would be it would be closer to fitting the stream package, which is much more about asynchrony.
Yeah, is
The
there a reason this can't be in Endo streams or Endo stream?
dependency layering, I mean, it could. My my take on package scopes and module scopes in general is that, again, it's about specificity and minimizing dependency and not like at the module layer, it's about minimizing accidentally and training dependencies that are not used, right? So if you which isn't necessarily the same as the package scope, but if the module scope and package scope are well aligned, it's good. The which is to say that if currently the streams package does not depend on exos and doesn't entrain exos, so it's suitable for cases where you're not using exos. And whereas I think that it would be best to have a separate package to clarify that this is the same concept but one layer up. It would be possible to satisfy the entanglement issue by saying there's an endostream exo.js export from the endostream package. I think that there's no reason not to have another package.
Exostream then.
Yeah, and your choice on whether to put a hyphen between those two, I don't really care.
More seriously, though, I do wonder about the method naming, the API exposed by this,
Yeah,
because the agoric version definitely does use symbol.async iterator,
it does.
which
We're
which
still using it.
has, the drawback of using symbols, but the benefit of being completely unambiguous for purpose. That you can trust the other side implementing symbol.async iterator is a claim to support the async iterable interface, which is not so obvious when you step outside of those language provided symbols.
Right. So whereas if we were trying to if we considered this an attempt to prototype a protocol that we might one day share with our OCAP and colleagues, it would
Right.
it would yeah. So one of the attractive things about making it so that you have an exo that has a distinguished method that the client and the server both agree on is that you can have an exo that implements multiple distinguished methods, which gives you a place to stand for evolution of the protocol. So if the exo implements literally symbol.async iterator, which over the wire is written as at async iterator, that's not something that we would ever oblige somebody in Scheme to send, but we could just add another method to the object when we have an agreement about what that method name ought to be. Are we actually running iterator protocol with the notifiers package over the wire, Richard? I don't think we are. Not for all of them.
I that is an interesting question.
Let's look.
They support it. But I guess what everyone actually uses is the subscribe after and get updates since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get update since, yeah.
Hello, terminal. Does everybody see a terminal? Is it of suitable resolution? No, of course not. Okay, so over here in Agoric SDK, there is a package called Notifier. Notifier, let's start where it all actually begins. Exports, source index, also some other stuff. Subscribe just. Do you remember which one of these is the one that we would promote?
The
Going.
most recent generation is Publish Kit. So I would go there.
So this would presumably be the entry point module for an Endo package. Publish kit. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Publisher interface, publish final, publish, finish, fail. Which, yeah. Subscriber has subscribe after, get update since.
Okay.
We have forkable async iterator shape. Oops. Okay.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah, the oops is in our patterns and guard systems.
Mm-hmm.
We do not
Yeah,
have a way to form,
cycle.
yeah, which for something that's type-like is definitely a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we implement both subscribe iterator each topic. Yes, subscribe after and also async iterator. I don't know. I think that this is messy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's too much legacy baggage still in this.
So what I'm going to suggest to you, Ryan, is that you read this and take the parts you like and propose something. And then we'll, yeah, right. And this is the make publish kit. Bearing in mind, yeah, a lot of this is, again, taking the 1,000-mile view. There are streams, lossy and non-lossy topics for PubSub. The deal with PubSub is that there's an expectation. There are varying expectations for PubSub, and it is very difficult to get this exactly right.
Yeah, let me mention one particular mistake it's very easy to fall into once you're dealing with multicast is if you have multicast and non-lossy, so all clients see everything sent on the one multicast, then you cannot do that and at the same time have the clients not be vulnerable to each other under memory constraints. With a stream, because you can do flow control on, the producer can do flow control based on the consumption. You can deal with finite memory of a slow consumer. But in a PubSub thing, if you're doing a non-lossy PubSub, then one slow consumer cannot, with finite memory, avoid slowing down all of the other consumers.
Yes. I posted an article in chat. I think that you say I wrote a long time of sort of like my reasoning through this problem space. It is ultimately about what you do when you have a slow consumer, and there are different trade-offs. And as Mark mentions, the pathological one is one where every subscriber expects to see every value that was published. That creates an obligation for the publisher to store everything
forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless there can be no new subscribers.
And until the subscriber releases their subscription, which means that you have to have an explicit mechanism for sensing that, either by way of I like the CapTP connection severance needs to be recognized as a legitimate way to conclude. Because that is like the big hammer. That if that's going to cause some promise that stretches across the boundary to be rejected, and you need to handle that as severance, and do the proper release. And the other one is there should be an explicit mechanism for unsubscribing. And if you're taking your page from JavaScript's iterator protocol, the subscriber already calls the return method of the async iterator when you exit the loop, and that's your signal.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, in the kind of system that we're trying to build, we don't trust our clients, and the clients certainly don't trust each other. So having one client be vulnerable to the tardiness of another client is like, well, going back to electric community, especially. Hi, Chip. Going back to electric community, I think it was consistently the case that all multicast channels were lossy in order to prevent this coupling between clients.
My memory of that is dim, but I think you are correct.
Yeah, and we did a lot with multicast.
The other subtle thing, and I think that Agoric got this wrong, Agoric might disagree. I don't know who from Agoric might disagree, but the distinction between there are two things that are different depending on whether you're doing subscribe each or subscribe latest type topics. If you are doing a subscribe each, let's start from the beginning. If you do subscribe latest, your first iteration result can be sent immediately if any value has ever been published before.
That's right.
Right.
We're doing that.
And we do that.
Yes, we do that.
And it's also the case that if you're doing subscribe latest, that if the subscriber has not called next, has not said that they have consumed the last one or interested in the next one, you can drop any intermediate value in that was emitted in that interval, and you only need to keep track of the latest value at any given time and push it over the wall.
That's right.
I have a dim memory that at electric communities we're still heavily under the influence of Joule channels, which were kind of by definition subscribe all.
Those were subscribe all, and those did have an infinite memory assumption. So Joule channels really could not be faithfully implemented without an infinite buffer memory.
So for Ryan's benefit, the two things that change when you have a latest base subscription are you can emit a previously published the previously published value if it exists immediately, and it can be lossy. If you do subscribe each, two things change. You do not get to publish. You have to wait for the next value to be published after the subscriber is introduced, and you must provide every subsequent value until it's unsubscribed, and that creates an obligation for the publisher to retain additional copies.
I'm not sure about the first of those. Subscribe each.
Yes, that is the point
Like-
of disagreement.
No. Like I'm not sure about the implemented behavior. Subscribe
Mm-hmm.
each might very well provide the latest value as its initial.
That is the case, and is my opinion that's incoherent, or at least it was my opinion that it was incoherent, and at some point.
So the point of subscribe each is there's this long stack of updates and you've subscribed to get all of them, each of them, right? And that does sound incoherent to me that you would send the latest one. I would subscribe each if I wanted to process all of the updates in order. Like it's sort of like a blockchain protocol would do.
Subscribe each is appropriate in the case where you're getting full snapshot. Yes, that's for no. Subscribe each is good for differential changes, where losing any individual change would cause your follower to lose track of the new resultant state with each update. So having a differential change emitting the prior differential doesn't make sense.
Right.
You want to emit a snapshot and then subsequent diffs.
Oh, I see. So you're not saying that you are giving someone a view of the entire history of the subscription. You're giving them the subscription in diffs from the moment they first subscribed.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, and that's why, as Richard points out, we currently emit the latest in our subscribe each, and that's why I think it's incoherent. You
Oh, no,
want to,
I'm claiming ignorance on that point. I don't know if subscribe each.
I'm pretty sure that is the case. That was the thing I found incoherent.
Yeah, I remember Michael and I did a eventually consistent distributed map where all of the other sites were read-only, but were eventually updated. And we did it by having two layers. The outer layer was a subscribe latest that gave you a pair of a snapshot of the map and a subscribe each for changes to the map. It had to give you both of them together so that they were synchronized. And what that meant is that once enough changes had happened that the list of changes exceeded the size of the map, you would terminate the subscribe latest and publish a new, you would terminate the subscribe each to the changes and then publish a new snapshot of a new state of the map as a whole.
And a new subscription starting at that.
And a new subscription, that's right.
So we should make that easy. We should, should provide
it actually was pretty easy when Michael and I did it with the existing abstractions.
With make iterator ref and make ref iterator, there's a similar thing that happened in there was a special case of that turned out to be relatively easy to express in a single layer. That was like whenever you where there's a component that shows a list of your pet names, for example, and it is modeled as a subscriber for a subscribe each effectively for differential on the list that it's presented, but the first updates, the snapshot is emitted as a whole bunch of initial additions. So if your initial set of pet names is Alice, Bob, Carol, you would get 3 immediate plus Alice plus Bob plus Carol, and then you would get possibly minus Bob and then plus something at, Dave or whatever. And that works. It's not ideal. Like ideally your user interface would get a synchronous snapshot of the array of current pet names and a subscriber for the differentials, and the differentials themselves might be aggregated as well, which is to say, Ryan, there isn't just one right answer. And the best way to design this is to give yourself a place to stand to correct your mistakes and fill in gaps as it grows.
I
And then
haven't made any mistakes yet, so
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That was your first mistake. Um, yeah. So, which is why I'm thinking that if we have an EXO with a whole bunch of conventionally named methods, that gives us a place to stand to backfill our prior mistakes and create new method names for so that we can gracefully migrate clients.
yeah, the protocol that you just mentioned does make me think, like, what is the difference between an object and the diff from the trivial object to an object? I mean, these are essentially the same item viewed as vectors.
I'm
We
not
should
sure what you mean.
Some protocols differentiate, some don't.
It seemed like, as you were describing, Chris, like the only difference was that there was a plus in front of every property. But I mean, this is every property appearing in the snapshot, right?
Oh my goodness. The other project that you ought to look into is FRB. I did an entire collections library based off of just 3 subscriber patterns. Um, the basically some collections implement multiple, some collections make it possible and perform well enough to implement multiple kinds of observation of their content. Um, and FRB was mostly considered concerned with synchronizing JavaScript objects and JavaScript collections. But the collections that it came with were like, here's a sorted array set, here's a sorted array, here's a sort, didn't have bags, but it could have had bags, and it had like different data structures for each of these things, but some common protocols for dispatching updates. What I arrived at was that if you're doing something that's array-like, regardless of its size, um, that you can model most updates as slice operations or splice operations, like JavaScript splice method operations. That is to say, at this particular index, remove the next n items and add these items, which is similar in spirit to something that is even more general than that, which is called operational transforms. Operational transforms are a way where you say every operation says, this operation expresses the new state in in terms of the entirety of the former state, where it's like take 7, insert these 3, delete these 2, insert these, and it's an array of keep, add, delete some number, keep, add, delete some number, etc., etc. And that's the most general form if you
Well,
want to build it.
Apparently these have come up as being not good enough in the case of conflict-free replicated data types.
Yes.
Indeed.
I'm actually quite interested. Have you guys heard of ink and switch? I don't
Yes.
I'm very curious to know about them. I sort of just found out recently, but they're talking about object capabilities and conflict-free replicated data types. Just going on and on about
And they're talking about these two things at the same time.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it.
who is this?
It's ink and switch.
This is Peter Van Hardenberg's shop. Brooklyn Zelenka of Fission is currently on contract to them implementing distributed authorization for auto merge and their like protocol for CRDTs.
Could you send some links not to the Zoom chat, but rather to an appropriate Slack channel?
Sure, I can do that.
Thanks.
Look at that. We know everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is not an incredibly high priority for me, but I would like to get it into Endo. And so I will.
Right. You know, I would not object if as a baseline you just took the ref iterator ref and made an exostream package and made, and like, to minimize regret, don't have an entry point module in it. Just say exos, say like, and at endo slash exostream slash iterator.js. And if that turns out to be regrettable, we throw it away later, then replace it with something else. Ideally in a way that we can.
Would that be a regreterator?
Ho, ho, ho!
Ding, ding, ding.
Regrettables and regretterators. Anyhow, yeah. Don't let this eat your career. It can. Or let it eat your career. I mean, that's fine too. Just if you do that, do so willingly and knowing what you're getting into. I look forward to learning, especially if you get. I look forward to hearing what comes out of the CRDT stuff, because there are collection specific protocols that don't have to generalize. The nice thing about having a generalized differential update protocol for array-like things is that you can write generalized combinators for them, like, you know, like map. And get a lot of use out of that code. Or map, filter, sliding windows. I was trying with FRB, I was working up to, there is a large remote collection with, like, you know, hundreds of thousands of entries in it that it would be impractical for your client to render. And so your client wants to do a sliding viewport over contiguous regions of that collection, possibly through filters and sorts and different things like that. So to generalize all of those different things to make essentially an analog of the NS list view from Coco, you need a combinator. You need a sliding window viewport combinator and a whole bunch of tools for doing filter and sort. In short,
I believe you.
yeah. Yeah. Also adjacent to this is something called NS predicate view. A lot of user interfaces have a predicate editor concept, which generalizes very, very well if you have a generalization of a database behind it. That's something worth looking into if you want this to eat your career. Okay. So two things. There's a lot of stuff you can do to research how to get this exactly right the first time, but if you do try to do this right the first time, you will fail. And two, if you want to just have something good enough, take what we already have and make a package out of it. And three, if you want to do one step better, take the Agoric notifier package and polish it.
Well, it will at least be good enough.
All right. I'm gonna call it at that. See y'all soon.